What lies beneath the surface of one of America's most iconic cities, the streets you walk on every day? The concrete and pavement beneath your feet might seem ordinary, even mundane. But if you look closer, you will realize there is something far more sinister hidden beneath the urban sprawl. Secrets, long forgotten, buried beneath the bustling streets, waiting to be uncovered. Picture this. The sounds of cars honking, pedestrians chatting as they walk, the hum of city life. And yet, somewhere beneath it all, something dark and unsettling lurks. Bodies, forgotten souls, left to rot in the dark, their stories untold, their deaths unanswered. But how could something like this happen in one of the most celebrated cities in the world? Why have not we been told the truth? You walk these streets every day, unaware of the chilling history hidden just below the surface. And perhaps, just maybe, these forgotten bodies are still waiting to tell their stories, to reveal the dark secrets that have been buried for over a century. Stay with me until the end. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell for more chilling stories from the shadows. San Francisco, one of America's most famous cities, known for its iconic Golden Gate Bridge, steep hills, and vibrant culture. A city that has grown from the dreams of fortune seekers to a bustling metropolis at the edge of the Pacific. But beneath the shiny surface, the city hides a darker history, a history steeped in death, disease, and forgotten souls. To understand the true mystery of San Francisco's streets, we need to step back in time. The year is 1849, and the gold rush has swept across the country like wildfire. Hundreds of thousands of people flocked to San Francisco, drawn by the lure of wealth and prosperity. But as fortune came to some, death followed closely behind. Disease ran rampant through the crowded streets. Plague, smallpox, and cholera claimed the lives of countless men, women, and children. Many of these people, particularly those who were poor or marginalized, had no proper burial. They were simply left to die in the gutters, their bodies abandoned in the city's growing chaos. The gold rush was only the beginning of San Francisco's dark chapter. The city's rapid expansion saw the rise of new buildings, roads, and railways, but at a terrible cost. As construction projects dug deeper into the earth, workers often found themselves disturbing the resting places of the dead. In the late 1800s, a cemetery officially known as the Yerba Buena Cemetery was situated near what is now Chinatown. It was one of the city's first burial grounds where thousands of people, including many Chinese immigrants, were laid to rest. But as the city grew, the cemetery was soon forgotten, and its graves were paved over by streets, buildings, and railways. But the forgotten bodies did not just vanish. They remained buried under the urban sprawl, their bones hidden beneath layers of concrete and asphalt. And as the city expanded, so did the rumors of strange occurrences, whispers of restless souls, mysterious hauntings, and chilling encounters that could not be explained. Despite the city's growth and development, San Francisco's past continues to linger beneath its streets. The bones of the forgotten dead still rest in silence, hidden away, waiting to be discovered. And in the shadows of the city, some say the spirits of those long gone still roam, lost and forgotten in the underbelly of the city. Beneath the modern streets of San Francisco, one can find a haunting legacy of the past, a history buried in layers of forgotten bodies. The mystery begins with the discovery of human remains during construction projects, events that would forever alter the way people viewed the city's foundations. As the city expanded, workers started to uncover bones, many of them old, brittle, and decayed, remnants of a time when the city was little more than a small settlement. In 1933, during the construction of a new building at the corner of Kearny and California streets, workers unearthed the first of many buried bodies. At first, it seemed like an isolated incident, perhaps a simple case of an old graveyard being disturbed. But as more buildings went up, more bodies were found, each discovery sending shockwaves through the construction teams and the city's inhabitants. One of the most notable finds came in the 1980s, when excavation for the city's famous BART subway system unearthed hundreds of human remains beneath Market Street. These bones were not just from anyone. Many were thought to be the bodies of Chinese immigrants, who were buried in unmarked graves after the devastating effects of the gold rush. They had been treated as little more than a footnote in history, forgotten victims of a time when the city's wealth and power were built on the backs of the poor. But the most chilling part of this discovery was not just the bodies themselves. It was the mystery surrounding their deaths. Many of the bodies found were hastily buried, with little regard for the proper rituals or respect for the dead. Were these people simply discarded, their lives erased from history? Or was there something more sinister at play, something that has been kept hidden beneath the city for all these years? What was even more unsettling were the reports from the workers who discovered the bodies. Some claimed that, after unearthing the remains, they began to experience strange phenomena. Tools went missing. Workers heard unexplained noises in the deep, echoing tunnels. And some even reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their vision. The atmosphere during these excavations was thick with unease, and many workers refused to go back to the sites after dark. It was not just the workers who felt the chilling presence of the past. Residents living near the construction sites reported hearing footsteps in the night, whispers in the dark, and strange lights flickering in the windows of buildings that stood over these forgotten burial grounds. Were these just the tricks of an overactive imagination? Or were they the restless souls of those buried in the depths, seeking recognition, seeking justice? And it was not just the discovery of the bodies that stirred unease. It was what happened after. Many of the bones and remains were quickly reburied or simply moved to another, less visible location. In some cases, the bodies were treated with little respect, further fueling the mystery of what was really happening beneath the surface. What was the city trying to hide? As the bodies of the forgotten dead were uncovered, an eerie silence seemed to settle over San Francisco. But it was not a peaceful quiet. The city had disturbed something deep within its very core, and some believe that what was unearthed was not just the remains of people, but something far more unsettling. Ghosts. Spirits. Restless souls that had been forgotten, buried under layers of concrete and asphalt, longing for recognition. It all started with the workers who unearthed the bones. One of the first accounts comes from a construction crew working on the foundations for a building on Montgomery Street. As they dug deeper, they unearthed a large collection of remains, many of them encased in old, rotting coffins. It was not long before strange things began to happen. Tools went missing, and eerie whispers filled the air. One worker reported hearing a voice that seemed to come from beneath the ground, murmuring in an unfamiliar language. The whispers, though faint, grew louder as the crew continued their work. Some workers claimed that, on certain days, they could feel an unexplainable chill in the air, even though the sun was high and the heat of the day should have warmed the ground. Others saw shadows darting across the worksite, figures that seemed to vanish when they tried to focus on them. The atmosphere grew thick with an oppressive energy that made many workers feel as though they were being watched by something that had been buried for far too long. One particularly disturbing account comes from a worker who claimed to have seen a figure standing among the unearthed graves. It was a man, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, with pale skin and empty eyes. "I thought I was seeing things, but when I blinked, he was gone," he said. "It was not just the figure, it was the feeling. I have never felt so cold in my life. It was as if the air itself had turned to ice." The paranormal events were not confined to the worksite. Locals living near these construction sites began to report strange occurrences as well. Residents of Chinatown, where many of the old burial grounds lay, spoke of shadows moving along the alleyways, figures seen standing on rooftops in the dead of night, and the distant sound of footsteps echoing through the streets when no one was around. Some even claimed to have heard voices calling their names in the darkness, voices that were unmistakably from the past, speaking in a language long forgotten. But it was not just the bones that seemed to stir the air. It was the land itself. The very earth beneath San Francisco was said to carry the weight of its history, and that weight was not always benign. As more remains were unearthed, paranormal investigators began to flock to the city, drawn by the stories of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena. Some of these investigators claimed to have captured strange orbs of light on camera, while others said they felt an unnatural presence that seemed to follow them long after they left the sites. The most famous of these hauntings came from a series of incidents that occurred in the 1990s during the construction of the new BART subway extension along Market Street. Workers who had been excavating in the area near what was once the Yerba Buena Cemetery reported some of the most disturbing events yet. One worker described feeling a cold hand grip his shoulder while he was digging. He spun around, but there was no one there. Another worker claimed to have seen a shadowy figure walk across the tunnel before disappearing into the walls. These were not the usual tricks of light or imagination. These were events that left many in a state of fear and confusion. Local businesses reported strange disturbances too. A bakery that had been established in the heart of Chinatown for over a century closed its doors after a series of terrifying incidents. The owner spoke of strange cold spots that would appear in certain parts of the shop, the distinct smell of incense wafting through the air at odd hours, and the unnerving sensation of being watched while they worked. The owners eventually shut the bakery down, citing a presence they could not explain. And when the building was sold, new owners refused to stay in the space for more than a month. Despite the paranormal reports, the authorities were quick to dismiss them as the results of overactive imaginations or local legends. But could it be that something far more sinister was going on? Could it be that the restless souls of the forgotten dead were reaching out, unwilling to be forgotten any longer? As the years went by and more bodies were discovered beneath the streets of San Francisco, a chilling question began to take shape. How many more bodies remained buried, unseen, beneath the layers of concrete and asphalt? Were they all truly dead, or was something more sinister at play? What was the city hiding? In the early 2000s, during an excavation for a new skyscraper along California Street, another set of remains was uncovered. This time the bones were different. They were older, more decayed, and many were broken as if they had been hastily disturbed long ago. But this was no ordinary discovery. Among the bones, something unexpected was found. An old, worn notebook. It was small, leather-bound, and stained with age. When the notebook was opened, it revealed detailed sketches of buildings that had long since been demolished, and strange symbols etched into the pages. The most disturbing part, however, was a note at the end of the book, written in a faded ink that seemed to have been scribbled in a hurry. The dead are not at rest. They will come back when the time is right. They will find you, and they will make you remember. The discovery of this notebook only fueled the growing conspiracy theories surrounding the city's burial grounds. Some believed that the notebook had belonged to someone who knew the true extent of the bodies buried beneath the streets, someone who had uncovered secrets that could destroy the city's reputation. Others suggested that the symbols within the book were connected to ancient rituals that could explain the strange, ghostly occurrences around the city. But it was not just the discovery of the notebook that made this find so chilling. It was what happened afterward. Within days of the discovery, the construction project was halted. The crew was sent home, and the area where the bones were found was sealed off. No one was allowed to go near it. The authorities refused to comment, and rumors began to spread that the city was trying to cover up something far darker than anyone could have imagined. Was the notebook a warning, a message from beyond the grave? Or was it simply a relic of a forgotten time, a piece of history that had been hidden away for too long? What makes this even more disturbing is the eerie coincidence of events that followed. Shortly after the bones were discovered, a number of workers who had been involved in the excavation reported strange dreams and unsettling visions. One worker claimed to have seen the figure of a man, standing in the shadows, beckoning him to follow. When the worker approached the figure, the man vanished into the darkness. Another worker, who had been directly involved in the discovery, disappeared without a trace just days after the excavation. His colleagues reported that, in the days leading up to his disappearance, he had become increasingly paranoid. He would constantly look over his shoulder, as though something or someone was following him. Was it the restless spirits of those who had been disturbed? Or was there something even darker at work, something that no one was prepared to confront? As the years passed, the mystery only deepened. Authorities continued to dismiss the discoveries and the paranormal reports, offering little explanation as to why so many bodies remained hidden beneath the streets of the city. What if the true reason for their concealment was something much darker, something that could shake the very foundation of San Francisco itself? Could the bodies buried beneath the city's streets be a part of something much larger, a secret that has been kept hidden for over a century? Were these forgotten souls simply victims of neglect? Or were they deliberately buried to hide a truth that someone, somewhere, did not want the world to know? As we reflect on the mystery of the forgotten bodies beneath San Francisco's streets, one question remains hauntingly unanswered. What lies buried beneath the city, waiting to be uncovered? The remains of the past, the whispers of the forgotten dead, and the eerie occurrences that have plagued the city suggest that some stories were never meant to be told. San Francisco has long prided itself on its innovation, its culture, and its beauty. But beneath its gleaming surface, the past is not so easily forgotten. The bones of those who lived and died before us still rest beneath the streets, their stories lost in time, waiting for someone to piece together the truth. The paranormal events, the strange discoveries, the chilling testimonies, they all point to something that cannot be explained away by simple coincidence or imagination. Could the restless souls of the forgotten dead still be influencing the city's future? Are their spirits truly at peace? Or do they remain trapped in the shadows of a city that has long ignored their presence? Perhaps the most terrifying truth is that we may never fully understand the extent of the city's buried past. The mystery may never be solved, and the ghosts of San Francisco's forgotten inhabitants may never rest. So what do you think? Are the strange occurrences in San Francisco simply the result of a dark history? Or is there something much more sinister that has been buried beneath the city for far too long? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Could the dead really be haunting the streets of San Francisco? Or is this all just a tale spun from local legend? And do not forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more chilling stories from the unknown. Who knows what we will uncover next time?